Joining the show today is one of us by way of Edina High School. You'll have to forgive him. Followed by 4 seasons with your Minnesota Golden Gophers. And then after his professional career, he made it his life's mission to get Minnesota hockey players paid as much money as humanly possible. Ben Hankinson. Thanks for jumping on with us.
Nice. I love the Edina and 4 seasons. It's not the Four Seasons Hotel, right? Because that goes hand in hand with Edina. That's 4 seasons with the Gophers. If I was really good, it'd be 3 seasons or 2 seasons or 1 season if I was really, really good. Thanks for having me, Joe and Scott. I appreciate it.
Nope. Yeah, it's funny you bring that up because that is always the fun balance with Gopher hockey players. Like some of the greats, it's like, was it their freshman year? Was it their senior year? And I mean, we usually start in a different area, but let's just talk them real quick. Gopher hockey, we got to be pretty excited and pretty optimistic about the season ahead, no?
Yeah, every year they have some obviously new young talent coming in. They're always fun to watch. The last few years at Mariucci have been extremely exciting and probably just as much for you guys watching, the fans. The people are back in Creighton, an environment that's fun to see, and the players respond to that too. So it was dead there for a few years, right? Now it's exciting, and Bob's obviously he's hungry. He wants to win one, and they have the guys. Jimmy's coming back. That's great. You say who stays 1, 2, 3, 4 years. It's funny. Yeah, the better maybe you are, the earlier you turn pro, but the favor, and that had something to do with Jimmy Snuggerud staying another year. And if you talk to Bob, which is his job to get those guys better, but to get them to stay, and he coaches the Gophers, so he wants them playing for the Gophers. It's all about, look into history. When guys like Jimmy Snuggerud are deciding if they're going to turn pro and make the most money. And thanks for saying, my job is to get them the most, because, sometimes I think I'm just a fair agent too, but my job obviously is to get them the most. But like with Jimmy Snuggerud, whoever it is, Bob's pitching, hey, look at the best players in the NHL. They stayed 3 years. They stayed more than 2 years. The ones that played 1 year are pretty damn good too. But his whole argument is, with his blinders on, and he's right too, be more mature, be more ready, and play longer. There's usually overall there's, not too many guys that make a mistake by playing. But back to the Gophers, they're fun to watch. They'll have a chance at winning for sure. That's like a lot of good teams out there too.
Yeah, it'll be a fun year. And for you, I don't know, it could be zero, it could be a big impact. How much has NIL impacted your work?
Just back in the day when I had an agent, he just negotiated your contract. You didn't talk to him again. Now, fast forward to, 2024, and I started in 91 maybe, being an agent, you do everything. So NIL is a part of it. Not even close to what these schools, the football schools, the other sports is insane, but there's definitely, deals for hockey players. It's just on a smaller scale and probably less of them. But I mean, guys can make 10 grand, 15 grand, maybe, the good players at pretty good schools. I almost feel a little sorry for some of the coaches, especially like I couldn't imagine the arms race you're in with PJ Fleck versus, the football schools. Like that's taken on, at least a third of their time now, when it didn't used to be the case.
Well, I think 10, 15 grand is not going to keep a kid in school, right? Like Logan Cooley getting Chipotle for free for a full semester is not going to keep him from going pro. So I guess it's different in that angle, right? It's not going to be changing a lot of your guys' mind about staying when you're in school. And that's kind of your tough balance of you want to get them the most money, but better opportunity for them as a kid to play, right? And
right. Yeah, I mean, that's an argument there. Chipotle may keep him out of the NHL, not keep him in school, right? All you can eat. Are you kidding? Enough for life. And there's a balance there, because you probably like to hear this, but it's not all about grabbing whatever you can. And that's where hockey players, I think, are a little different. And my job is to, going back to what you said, Scott, make these guys as much money as possible, but it's also getting them ready for the next level too. And a lot of that success, you put it all in the blender. It's the kids the young men that, don't go after all that. Like if you see a a player tweeting about, like in my world, like to get a mattress, you can send a tweet out or Instagram post, whatever, to get a Casper mattress or whatever it is. And a lot of guys don't want to do that. And I love it when they don't do it. I had Dustin Byfuglien. We had like 75 grand, 50 of it was going to go to a charity. When he won the Stanley Cup in 2010 with the Blackhawks, we had a deal with Captain Morgan's where he was supposed to stand with the Captain Morgan's knee up, salute, and whatever it is. And we had that money guaranteed, Game 7, I think it was, for him to do that and get paid. And the camera, they had a photographer just for Dustin, ready to take the picture if they win, if he scored a goal. And in my head, watching the game, I was praying that he didn't score. I wanted him to score, but the worst scenario in my head that could play out is if he scored, did the pose, they lose the game, and then it comes out he gets paid for doing that endorsement, and it's a disaster for everyone because you're thinking about, that endorsement all game. So they win the cup. I think he had a goal, and I call him after, didn't get a hold of him. Finally talked to him. I said, hey, did you do I couldn't see, they cut off from you. Did you do the pose? Did they get it? And he said, oh, crap, I forgot. He totally forgot about it when I thought, all right, all is right in the world, at least with Dustin Byfuglien. Those guys that don't care about that, those, like, I don't mean to say it, but those are the players. And the world's changing, so you can't compare. It's different now, but, the hockey players are different in that regard, and it's not all about the money. And that's what my job is, to get them the money, but to have that balance with everything, to not just be about – hockey players make their money playing hockey and winning. It's not like other sports, golf, and a lot of sports that make their money in endorsements. So thankfully, they're not out and have the camera in front of their face or their own phones in front of their face all the time, which is kind of refreshing.
Yeah.
What's up with Byfuglien right now? Where is Byfuglien up? I was like,
he's on the fishing tour. He just stopped by and was up on Gull Lake. I have a little cabin up there. Met him, and he was in a tournament, a bass tournament. Took him out for dinner, and which was fun to see him. He's only put on a few pounds. He looks great. He loves fishing. He's got the great hands. He's pulling in bass and smiling and loving life.
God, he's not nearly as far off the grid as I would have thought then. And do you have a client, former or current, that you get asked about more often than Dustin Byfuglien?
No, he's one of a kind. I mean, he told me when he signed his 5-year deal, I don't want a 5-year deal. And of course, he's just saying that to me. And sure enough, he quit like with 2 years left on the deal. Like it's an 8 and a 6 were the numbers that started. The 1 year was 8 million, the next year was 6. Then he quit, and I told him, like, my kids were no longer going to go to private school. They weren't anyway. But no, like, and he walked away, and he said, I told you I didn't want a 5-year deal. It wasn't the money at all. And all he had to do was basically go get some rehab and attempt to come back. And it was a hockey injury, and he just left it on the table and walked, which is insane. He's the more you know him, the more you love him. He's the best.
I was told to ask you where the nickname Hawk came from. If you could explain that one. Did
that really come from Billy Guerin, the GM?
No, it came from one of your players.
Really? Yeah. Billy tells the story. We were together in New Jersey. He was there longer than me. And I told him my nickname was Hawk, and it really wasn't. And he started calling me Hawk. He still calls me Hawk, and he laughs about it. Not that many people call me Hawk. I don't know. Like, this is interesting that you got asked that, because not a ton of people call me Hawk. My dad, God rest his soul's nickname was Hawk. I get called Hank more, but I do get Hawk. And Billy makes fun of me. Who gives themselves their own nickname? I don't know why I said that to him one day.
Hey, like my phone number needs to change for you. It needs to go from Hank to Hawk. So I need to fix that.
I'll take it. I like that.
I need to fix that one.
You got to lean towards the camera real quick for us, if you could, Ben.
I see what you're looking at.
Magnificent stash. Oh my goodness.
Oh, magnificently bad.
The scouting report from your wife and family and that mustache, and where it kind of initiation for this thing started from. Where did it originate from?
God, it was in March, and I went down on a little trip with her down to California to go see some of the players in LA, Anaheim, Ontario, Coachella Valley, San Diego, those teams down there, which is great, by the way, to make it a business trip. And I had this mustache, and it looked like this. without these. These are extensions, by the way. I can pull. Oh no, I can't pull them off. So she said to me, like, it was getting old. She said, maybe you should grow those little wings on there, the rolly fingers. Yeah, I couldn't believe she said it. That was like a game on. Like, that was 6 months ago in March. And I don't know why I haven't cut them off. I think they're going to come off soon, but if I had to bet in another week, they'll still be there. But I don't know. I mean, I must have a pretty good wife if she lets me keep these. So I know they're awful. My mother-in-law told me, like, those don't look good. And I said, yes, of course I know that. And she said, well, it doesn't make any sense then. Why would you have that ugly mustache? It makes you look like you're at least 10 years older. And I said, part of it's a look. It's contract time. It's time to get some deals done. I need to have a mask. And I don't know why I still have it, except I have 3 guys still that have to sign. So that's maybe the reason.
Yeah. Well, we see you all summer with that stash, the Beauty League. Obviously, it's really successful. A lot of fans out there on Wednesday nights in Raymar Arena, home of Edina, state champions from last year. Just how did this whole idea of the Beauty League start? And are you surprised it's taken off the way it is? Or I'm sure you're like an agent yourself trying to get people to play every Wednesday, right? Just try to fill out the lineup card. Yeah,
it's like herding cats. The truth be told, these guys, they have other things to do, and this is their cherished summer months. They don't at night. Certainly their spouses, their wives don't want them going out and playing hockey. They have kids. This is their time to be with their family. So I give them a lot of credit. There's some good charities involved. The guys absolutely love it. It's the diehard local guys that come, every time, like the Nate Schmitz and the Seth Helgesons and Ryan Lindgrens and like the Staylocks and the Galagoskis and the guys that love hockey. They love to compete. So once we put a scoreboard up, once you threw refs in there, once you throw fans on there, that's a trifecta. All 3 of those, and you're going to not want to embarrass yourself. So it came about. There's just so many good players around here. There's pockets of hockey players everywhere. And we have a good pocket. We have our camp that started today that our company Octagon Hockey puts on a camp. And today's the first day. We run it for 2 weeks. They skate at Braemar at like 10:30 every day. And there's great players there. And then they work out and they're done for the day, except for this Beauty League. For some reason, we collect them all the best players. There's 100 NHL guys that have played in it. And tonight you'll see like Guentzel and McDonagh on the same team, or, and that's at the 5:00 game. So it just was an idea, like, let's see if we can make this work. And somehow it has. The kids, the older grandparents you see at the game that pay $10, kids get in free. I'm sure like there's a lot of people that sneak into, which is okay. And then a lot of money goes to charity. And it's a tribute to these guys, these pro players that come on. I switched it this year. We have a women's team, 2 women's team, which is awesome. That there's about 6 of us that put it together, and it's like it's like putting on it's a big production. It takes a lot of time. Yes, the rosters are all day, the last 3 days, basically, it seems like, with guys coming and going, and then players wanting to know, well, why did he get put on that team? Like, I drafted him, or I want him, or I recruited him, or it's kind of like, as you could imagine, really competitive, but it's been a ton of fun. The fans love it, and the charities benefit, and that's the biggest reason why we do it. It's been 8 years now, I think.
8 years, yeah. I think I saw 11-10 game a couple weeks ago, which was crazy. 11-10,
yeah, we love those games.
A lot of obviously big name guys, especially for local legends, and one of them is Ryan McDonagh, a guy I know really well from my time covering Tampa Bay Lightning. And I think when he left, it was, hurt a lot of fans, and the room didn't really feel like the same. And then so for him to come back, it seems like a really special thing for that group. Like, how did that kind of come together? It's very rare for a guy to get asked to waive his no trade clause and leave, and then want to come back, right? Like, how did that kind of all come together?
Yeah, when he left Tampa, that was like couple days before July 1st. He was flying home, and we had a call from Julian Brisebois. He broke the news, and he's a shrewd, great GM down in Tampa, and it was a tough move, and we didn't like it. Ryan didn't like it. I didn't like it, and that's the business of it. And he handled it very professionally, because Ryan McDonagh is a 2-time Cup champion, the youngest captain in the history of the New York Rangers, and there's a reason. He took it like a pro, went to Nashville, brought his game there, his best captain attitude, and had a good run there. And then I think they were had 2 years left on his contract. He's making a lot of money. And that's what happened on the business side of it, why Tampa moved him, because they needed the room. They made some signings, made a couple moves, and had to build for the future. And I think it was a good run in Tampa. And all of a sudden, there was some feelers. Teams were poking around on Ryan Mack. And, we kind of got word of it. And all of a sudden, I don't think Barry Trotz, the GM there, was jumping up and down to trade him. He certainly wasn't. But it was kind of a mutual set of conversations between all of us and Ryan and Barry specifically too, saying, I understand the memories and the connection and your value down in Tampa. And Julien Brisebois, realized when he lost him, it was a major loss, and they brought him back now with Stamkos, going out the door, and they needed to bring some magic back there. And, they did with Ryan Mack, and then Nashville loaded up and they got Stamkos, they got Brady Shea, and they got some other guys. So it's funny how crazy the world works with, a little give and take. And it was a really emotional return for Ryan Mack. He's one of the greatest of all time. And it was a lot of phone calls behind the scenes before that even happened with Barry Trotz and Nashville and Julien Brisebois too. And then we had Jake Guentzel signed there. I did his contract too. So that wasn't really intertwined, but it was kind of happening, all this summer. And that was a crazy run too. So Julien is a lawyer. He's French Canadian, and it took a long time before I really got to know him. He does a great job down in Tampa, and he's a wizard when it comes to pulling off deals. And he pulled a big one there with those two guys.
Was it something where, sorry, Scott, well, something where like Julien reached out to you guys and said, hey, we want to bring him back? Or Barry Trotz said that McDonagh requested a trade, want to go back to Tampa. Like, was it the timing of those things? Was it he wanted to itch back with his family to go back there? Or was it, you heard that they were interested and then that's kind of how it spurred?
Yeah, I think that there was some rumblings over the trade deadline back in March when I was starting to go wild with my wings and starting my mask. And then I think that's when we had some conversations with Barry and then revisited it in the summer with, okay, now they made a playoff run. They used Ryan Mack or had him for the playoff run. And then we kind of, went back and talked to Barry about it. And it ended up being like the right fit for both. If you talk to Barry, he'd say, no, we didn't want to lose Ryan. And Ryan would probably say, no, I didn't want to leave, Nashville either. But he I think with the special, cups they won in Tampa and realizing how bad they need them. And then Nashville probably realizing what they could do with the money. It ended up working well for both sides. I think Barry, he probably won't admit it and wanted to do it. I don't know if he did. I'm not saying he did, but I think to do the deal, like he was helping Ryan, but also helping his team.
Yeah.
And the Guentzel too, as a guy that, the biggest name in free agency this summer. And I think some people thought maybe he'd stay in Carolina. Obviously he was a great fit there to see if he could make a little bit of run, help them. Like, how did that all come together? I wasn't sure how the new free agency window worked, where you can he get a chance to talk to people or not? Like, how did he kind of become a Tampa Bay Lightning player?
Right. There used to be an interview period they had, which now they've eliminated it. And that was always, you couldn't negotiate or come to an agreement on a contract, but you could talk to teams and figure out parameters. So that created a big gray area. Now that's closed and they no longer have that. But I did a full negotiation with Pittsburgh on Guentzel before the season, and he was hurt and we didn't get a deal done. And then come the trade deadline, he got traded to Carolina. I talked to them a little bit, and then they made a run with Guentzel, and then all of a sudden you're at the draft and he wasn't signed. And I think that was a big part of it. Eric Tulsky was named their GM, this summer, and he hadn't been a GM before, and we had a good relationship with him, during the negotiations. And Tom Dundon, their owner, is more involved than most, and had a lot of dialogue with him too, a lot of meetings at the draft. And I think that the big reason that he didn't end up, back in Carolina was the deal didn't get done until basically the draft. And once you get that close to, the deadline or the starting point for the next season or the next free agency on July 1st, I think all of a sudden teams start, making moves, and there's a different buzz than there is, in May or June, or, all of a sudden now you're at the end of June, and he got that close. And then there was a big trade. Tampa ended up making a trade and freed up, some space with Utah. And it took like that long, really, really, for it to happen. And I thought he was probably going to end up getting signed in Carolina, but it didn't happen. And that was, I think, the case. It took so long that he got closer to free agency, and boom, all of a sudden it happened quick with the trade and the sign.
I grew up a Penguins fan. Can you just maybe clear up or give a little context to the parting of ways with Pittsburgh? Because it's pretty well known he didn't want to leave. Like, he was very happy there. Was it something that was like a long time coming and you guys saw that he was going to be moving at the deadline, or this kind of hit him out of nowhere?
Well, I think with his injury and surgery before last season, he had a surgery about 1 year ago, maybe a week before today. And so he went into the season not 100% clear. And the new GM, Kyle Dubas, was trying to figure out which way the Penguins were going. And if he was 100% healthy, maybe he gets signed. We talked about it a lot. Jake wanted to re-sign with Pittsburgh. I think Dubas wanted to sign Jake, knew how valuable he was. Jake is a loyal, great hockey player, loves Sid Crosby, loves the Hall of Fame cast on that team. So he wanted to get a deal done, and we were somewhat close, but he was hurt. And I think that was the reason it didn't get done. So they wanted to wait and see what was going to happen. And I think Kyle Dubas and the Pittsburgh Penguins' intention was to sign Jake. And I think Jake's intention was to sign with the Penguins. And then Jake was confident that the team was going to, I had questions, where was the team going to go? And he was confident, and it's his career, not mine. He listens to me, but at the end of the day, he's the one making the decision. He thought he was going to end up staying there, and the season didn't end up going great. And it looked like, at the trade deadline, that they weren't going to be, close to that point when they were deciding what to do. Jake was a player that they could get the most assets for in return and do a potential rebuild. And then he ended up getting traded to Carolina, and Carolina wasn't going to sign him. So if you're trying to figure out what Dubas was maybe doing, maybe there was a scenario where he thought if he goes to Carolina, he's still in the East, which normally you really probably wouldn't want to trade, a player like that to the East and re-sign a long-term contract. And he didn't, because, they got knocked out by the Rangers. And then, I don't know, I'm not saying it's the case, but maybe Dubas thought we could re-sign him possibly in the summer too. And I think just the biggest answer to your question, Scott, is I think Pittsburgh didn't make enough of a statement this year to show, everyone involved, most importantly, probably Kyle Dubas, that they were ready to pay Jake, what he's going to get in free agency. And that was the right move for that team at the time where they're going to be a rebuilding. You have Sid there. It's just was such a tough dynamic that I think Kyle Dubas did a good job under, some really tough, uncertain times, which way it was going.
I know, like we mentioned before, you have a lot of guys who make a lot of money, or maybe the higher profile players, but I think a lot of pride you probably have in some of the guys that have to really work hard to stay in the league and find their way. And one of my favorite people in the league is Luke Schenn. And if you could put in perspective of where he was like 5 or 6 years ago, kind of maybe on the out, maybe potentially not, being the end of his career to winning 2 cups in Tampa, like what kind of you kind of share about what made him able to kind of stick it out and reinvent himself and become such a huge part of multiple teams since then?
Yeah, that's like, people that and cross paths with, not just athletes, but everyday life. Someone you see works harder than someone else, maybe as a teacher or a bus driver or construction or a CEO or whatever it is. Luke Schenn is a grinder. He's very aware of where he fits in, what he needs to do to improve on, what he's good at. Which is tough for a lot of kids to know, okay, everyone wants to be a scorer. Where do I fit in? Luke knows he's not a scorer. He knows he's a character, tough, shutdown defenseman. And that used to be a big part of the game, back in the day, and it still is, but you have to be able to skate, move the puck, and provide some offense too, because now defensemen handle the puck and make plays, and that's just as much as defending because they have the puck and you don't have to defend if you have the puck. So Luke Schenn was at a point of his career, actually when I started pretty much representing him, that there was a spot he was in where he was sent to the minors and he was told he should quit and walk away. And he didn't. He battled through and he went to the minors and he put in his time and grinded and then, found his way to, he's top of the NHL and all-time hits. He's a loved teammate. He played in Toronto and there was a hero there because he still fights, still protects guys. He's like having a policeman, on your team. Like you look down the bench and Luke Schenn's got it. And no one likes to be that guy, but he's smart enough to know what he does well. And he keeps bringing that all the time. And he happens to be a good player and he's a big kid and he's well-liked. And now he signed and was rewarded with a 3-year nice contract with Nashville last year and the summer before. And now those contracts are fun. I think we were talking about that, you guys, and those are the fun deals. And even the guys in the minors that are scraping for every penny, those guys. And that's, I think, this game that we're all, love so much. There's so many great people in it. I think that the ones like Luke Schenn stick around. They stick around and they play longer than the average guy because they get rewarded for the Patty Maroons. The guys like that keep getting deals. Why? Because they're great humans and they actually help young guys take their jobs. But that's valuable because they're helping the young guys where some players, they look at the young player as a threat and don't want them to take their job, obviously, which is just human nature. But, it doesn't make teams, better and help teams win. And it's not the character that hockey needs to win. So that's a quick Luke Schenn story. His brother Braden's the same thing. His brother's the captain of the St. Louis Blues. And, all he wants to do is win. And St. Louis is in a little bit of a funk now with where they're going, and they made some good moves, and they're going to be better. And he's just constantly, just always talking about the team and not himself. And that's how you get to know your clients too. The ones that aren't complaining about their ice time or their what they're getting paid or how someone's treating them or complaining, but the ones coming with, help us. Who do you have that can help our team win? Those are the Schenns and a lot of our other guys, to be honest.
For sure. And the last player that we have to ask about, and I'm sure you could go on for quite some time on this guy, everything he's battled through. But Brock Boeser, quite the resurgence here recently. I got to ask you first, though, before talking about him. For Wild fans, was there ever a point where you thought maybe something's going to get done here? Maybe he is going to be part of the Minnesota Wild?
I think so, yeah. I think there's a need for a right shot scorer to play with a pretty good player on the Wild right now and add some offense. I just think the toughest thing for the Wild and Billy Guerin was the 14 and change million. They're short, and this is their last year of it. So I think that was the big reason it didn't happen for sure. I think Brock Boeser was going to be available at a much bigger discount last year, and then scored 40 this year, so the price went up a little bit. Billy still is having a tough time fitting that in. Who knows? I don't know. I'm just speculating like you guys, but yeah. I think they're going to go out and get a player like Brock. Hopefully it's Brock, and as a Wild fan, I think it'll be someone that's going to be really good. And now that the Wild, are close but not there yet, I think that money is going to help. You can get at least 2 good players with that money that'll free up.
I know you have to go here quickly. One last question on golf. I have one question before the golf question is, who's the best golf player in your family?
Oh, that's a great question. My 2 brothers and not me. Maybe my sons. But I just hide behind I have potential. I'll never reach it, but I got potential. I don't play a lot, but I'm decent somewhat when I play. But so my brother Peter was a great golfer, and my younger brother Casey's a good golfer too. So not me.
Fair. Final question brought to you as always by our good friends at Waggle Golf. First, make sure you head over to getyourwaggleon.com, throw in promo code SP10 to take 10% off your entire order. Who would make up the remaining 3 golfers in your dream golf foursome? It can be celebrity, athlete, dead or alive, doesn't matter.
Scott, Joe, and Michael Russo.
Oh my God, you're the first person.
You know what?
You just want to win.
That Billy Guerin is the best to golf with. He's an absolute beauty, one of a kind. God, that is such a good question. I would have to like really think about that. I mean, you got the Tiger Woods and the Michael Jordans and the Arnie Palmers and the Jack Nicklauses. You know, obviously you step outside of golf. I can't give you an answer right now because, you know, that's besides you two guys, I'm going to stick with you two and Michael Russo, who actually would be fun to golf with.
That'd be fun. I don't know. Is he a good golfer? I have no idea. I've never golfed with him.
I doubt it. No, because he's good at his job. And he went
get cigars.
Yeah. No, you got me stumped on that one.
All right. Next time you jump on with us, we expect you to have done your homework and we'll get a thorough answer.
Done deal.
Yeah. Well, thanks so much for joining us. I know you're not a huge podcast guy, but I appreciate you jumping on and having fun with us. And congrats on the Beauty League success again. And of course, a lot of your top guys, your clients will be part of the headlines all season, looks like this year. So
yeah, thanks for having me. And you guys keep up the good work.
Thank you so much. Good to see you. And we'll catch you at Braemar at some point.
Awesome.